Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments. This will be the fourth in the series of How To with your TI-84 Plus graphing calculator. I'm Ruth Casey, and I'll be the moderator for the event. We'll be using the WebEx chat panel to share comments or questions. So when you send a chat, please select everyone from the drop-down menu. That will ensure that our panelists get to see what you're sharing. Let's try it now. We invite you to select everyone and share your name and location. Thank you. As a reminder, the session is being recorded and will be available for viewing or reviewing later. If you experience any audio or video issues that cannot be resolved, please feel free to watch the recording later. I'm so pleased to have two outstanding educators with us as presenters, John Lemaster and Stuart Moskowitz. John and Stuart, welcome. Thank you so much. Please say hi and tell us about yourselves.
I'll go first. Hi, I'm John. I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I teach at Purdue University, Fort Wayne. Stuart and I have loved doing these things, and this is part 4 because we just can't feel like there's no end to these.
And I'm Stuart, and I live about 300 miles north of the Golden Gate Bridge up on the Redwood coast of Northern California. I retired 4 years ago from Humboldt State University, now known as Cal Poly Humboldt. And I've been a T-Cube National Instructor for, oh my gosh, 30 years. And delighted to get another chance to work with John and with Ruth, too.
Thank you. Let's get started.
So tonight, thank you all for joining us for another evening with an amazing machine. The TI-84 continues to be the tool of choice. I really do believe that. And so tonight we want to focus on tables, and in particular, when we decided to focus on tables, I thought about the finance app, because the finance app leads to things like amortization tables and graphs. So we're going to take a look at that. And John's going to show you how to really bring the tables to life to explore patterns. And if you've ever played a game in your algebra class called What's My Rule, where the goal is to discover a function rule, John's going to show you a really wonderful way to do that with the TI-84.
And then a little bit later, we'll have a webinar drawing. So somebody tonight will have an opportunity to win a graphing calculator. Woohoo!
What a great way to end. So our expected outcomes listed here are not just using the finance app in a way to kind of feel your way around it, but then taking data from it and then using that to build an amortization table. It's sure to build interest, and I know I did that on purpose. We'll also stick a formula in the y= editor and build a table and control how it will display. And just a simple procedural suggestion. And if you're like me, you want to follow along with that calculator as we do things. But unlike that, it's all recorded. So if you put the calculator down and just enjoy us kind of sharing what we're doing, your best experience for this webinar will be watch it again and then have your calculator where you can pause us at a pace that's comfortable for you, because that way you won't be frustrated or looking down in your calculator when we're showing something. And I think that has proven out to be a really good way to get the best experience out of the webinar. So Stuart, I'm going to give you the first role here to put you to share this. And I've been looking forward to this activity all day because it is so much fun. And I've shared with all my friends, come and see this. So thank you, Stuart, for sharing what you've got. Oh, thank you, Kathy.
All right, thanks, John. Well, yes, let's get started. Let's get started. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's make sure that this is visible. Okay, I am sharing my screen. Oh, you don't need to see, you don't want to see all of that. Let's see now. I'm sharing my screen. I'm going to close that. And here is my smart view with a nice blank screen. And I also want to show you the handout that you can download. You can get it from the same website that you signed up for this webinar. John will also provide you with another link where you can get it off of his website too. Since I'm retired now, I am not maintaining a website at the university any longer. Anyways, everything that I do will be on this 3-page handout, all the screenshots, all the meanings of everything. I just am kind of giving you a real quick, a quick run through here. Of course, as I said, if you're trying to download it now and follow it, as John said, I suggest that, perhaps just let me go through this. You can watch the video again. You can read the handout. And even more important, I want to make sure that you know that you can contact me and John at any time. I put my email address on every page of the handout. Please don't hesitate to contact me directly if you've got any questions whatsoever. So, how did this all get started? How did I somehow turn my TI-84 into an amortization table? Then I suppose I should say that I have always wanted to I've always wanted to take my TI-84 out into the real world. I don't want it just to be a classroom calculator. So I take it with me everywhere I go. And in particular, a few years ago, I was searching for housing, looking to buy a house. And when we would look at a place that I was interested in, my broker would take out his little his finance business calculator and punch in some numbers, in particular, the amount of the loan that I would need and the interest rate, and he could come up with, what my payments would be. Conversely, when I would tell him what I wanted, how much I could afford, he could then tell me how much I could afford per month. He could tell me what kind of a loan I could get. But every time we would change the numbers, he'd have to start all over. And I discovered that I could do it much more easily and much friendlier on my TI-84. So let's take a look. I'm going to go to apps, and I'm assuming that you can see my screen. Otherwise, I believe Ruth or John would have said something by now. So I'm assuming you're looking at the finance menu. I'm going to go into finance. And if you've never been here before, you're going to see there are two submenus, the calculate and the variables. And there's lots of variables. And then there's lots of variables. There is, in particular, though, we're going to start with number one, TVM solver. TVM stands for time, value, money. So let's go and take a look at what we have there. And I'm going to get there. And oh my goodness, I'm going to clear everything out. Whoops, I'm going to change it to 0. I can't leave them blank. I just want them to all be 0. And interestingly, domain error, they can't all be 0. So I'm going to go to, you can't have 0 for payments per year. So the default setting when I start all over, the first time you go to the finance app, the TVM solver, this is what it's going to look like. And so I'm going to make up some numbers. Typically, a housing loan would be a 30-year loan, and so that number of payments would be 30 times 12 is 360. Oh, by the way, if you don't know that, you can just type 30 times 12 and get 360. By the way, notice that I am showing 2 decimal digits here. I want you to know that I went to mode before we started, and I changed a floating decimal point to fixing it at 2 decimal digits. Since I'm working with money, I want the output to look like dollars and cents. I've also changed my mode setting from sequential to simultaneous. So when we get to the graphs will come up at the same time. Although I must say that with the SmartView emulator, things happen so much faster that it almost looks like everything is simultaneous. But especially with a handheld, I think you'll find simultaneous to be more interesting and more revealing. Anyways, I'm going to go back to apps, finance, TVM solver. Okay. Interest rates just went up. I'm afraid to say it looks like it might be 7% right now is what it might take to get a loan. And the way that the housing market is here in California, although I guess it almost doesn't matter where it is, houses are expensive. So let's go with a $350,000 mortgage. And I'm going to type $350,000, excuse me, a $350,000 loan. But I'm going to make this a negative 350,000. All right, a negative 350,000. I'm going to go down to payment, and I get a syntax error. I like to tell my students that I want to make as many mistakes as possible, because every mistake I make, sure enough, they're going to make those mistakes. You're going to make those mistakes. And if I can do them first, then perhaps we can do some troubleshooting, because it's not always clear what the mistakes are. So a syntax error means that there's something grammatically wrong. It just doesn't understand. I've typed something wrong, okay, and it doesn't understand what I've said. So I could quit and go back to the home screen, but I'm going to choose number 2, go to. So I'm just going to click on 2, and it's going to take me straight back to my TVM solver, and it looks like it's flashing right on that negation sign. Well, is it a negation sign or not? I'm going to move the cursor over. I'm going to insert another symbol right here on the bottom row is a negation sign in parentheses. We also have a negation sign over here with the 4 operations. Let's take a look at this one right here. It's now in red. It's got parentheses around it. And I want you to look at this here. Notice that I have 2 different symbols than one I just typed. One in parentheses is a little bit shorter, and it's even a little 1 pixel row higher. And this is really important when a student comes to you and says, well, how come I get a different answer? Why am I getting an error? You should recognize the difference between subtraction and negation. That's really important as the teacher, because the kids are going to be hitting the wrong one all the time. Some calculators, these 2 symbols are interchangeable, but on the TI-84, subtraction is a binary operation. It requires 2 arguments, one before and one after the operator. And of course, I don't have anything before. The negation symbol is unary. It only requires an argument following it. So in this case, I definitely want to have the negation sign, not subtraction. So I'm going to put the cursor right on top of the subtraction symbol, and I'm going to hit the delete key, not the clear key, because clear will erase the whole line. So let's just press delete, and we're back to negative 350,000. So the whole idea here is I want to know what my payments are going to be after. Okay, if I have a $350,000 loan, it's 7%. I know that I'm going to pay it off in 30 years. That's 360 payments. The future value, FV, at the end of the 30 years will be 0. I want to make 12 payments per year, so I'm going to change that from 1 to 12. And it will automatically change by default. If payments per year is 12, it's going to automatically assume that each payment is going to be a compounding period. So by default, it has compounding periods per year, the same as payments per year. I've yet to find a situation where I've wanted these to be different. Okay, so we've set everything up. The idea here is I know that's going to, 7% is what the loan's going to be. I need to borrow 350,000. Let's see what the payments are going to be. So I'm going to put the cursor on the payment line. And if you look on the keyboard of the calculator above the enter key, the alpha command is solve. So I'm going to go alpha and I'm going to hit enter, but I'm really hitting solve. And it tells me, it gives me that little, the little cursor there to tell me that this is where we are, that I'm going to have payments of $2,328. That's a lot of money. And I say to my broker, ooh, I'm not sure that I can afford $2,300. I can really only afford $2,000 a month. So he says to me, well, okay, let's see how much then you can afford to borrow. So let's put 2,000 in. And this is where I sure like what the TI-84 over what the broker had, because the broker has to start all over, and to retype everything. All I have to do is make payments be 2,000, and now I want to find out how much I can borrow. If I want to at 7%, how much can I borrow? So let's move to present value, and we're going to go alpha solve. And I see that, well, at 2,000 a month, I can really only borrow $300,000. So this is how I can go back and forth. And I think, all right, $2,000, that's my maximum. So I'm going to think what I'm going to do here is change this present value to a $300,000 loan. Let's see, let's just get rid of that. And no, okay, I'm going to borrow 300,000. I'm going to go back to payment. I'm going to hit alpha solve. And I see my payments will be $1,995 a month. Of course, maybe another bank will give me 6% or 5%. So I can do this one at a time. I can go back and forth and just I can change interest to, and then find out again how much the payment will be. So we can make changes and then solve for the last for the unknown. Anyways, so this is how I get started. Okay, so let's see. We've come to terms. I'm going to borrow $300,000 at 7%. My payments are $1,995. What would an amortization table look like? Well, actually, I'm not even ready for an amortization table, because something that especially first-time buyers tend to overlook is okay, I'm going to be paying almost $2,000 a month. How much of that, let's say I'd like to know how much of that goes towards principal and how much of that goes towards interest. So let's go back to the home screen. Second, quit. I'm on a blank line on the home screen, and I'm now going to go back to finance. I go apps, finance, and I'm going to scroll down and I'm looking for principal, sum of the principal right here. And notice this left paren. It means that there have to be arguments following this, this function. And if you don't know what the arguments are, you could go to your guidebook and look it up, but you also have basically a guidebook built into the TI-84. You can go straight to the catalog. It's the second command above 0. But if you're in a menu and you highlight the function that you want, and you just press the plus key, notice there's nothing here that tells you what to press. Okay, so you may want to make a note of that. If you press the plus key before you select, again, I've highlighted this line, sum of the principal. I'm going to press the plus key, and it's going to take me to catalog help. And it tells me that there are 3 arguments: payment 1, payment 2, and then the third argument, which is in square brackets. That means it's optional. I can round to any amount any number of decimal digits that I choose. Well, since I've gone into mode and I've told it that I want to round everything to 2 decimal digits, I don't need to worry about the round value. So I'm just going to have payment 1, payment 2. But I really only want to know how much is the principal on the first payment. So I'm going to say from payment 1 to payment 1. That's kind of a weird way to do it, but this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to press the close parentheses, and this is the statement that I need to type. Now, here's an interesting one. Okay, I want to now paste this onto the home screen. Well, if I click on paste, nothing happens. Then I can click there all I want. Nothing happens. But this is not a touch screen. My computer, my laptop is not a touch screen, nor is my TI-84. So whether you have a handheld or you're using Smart View, you can click on that paste all you want and nothing is going to happen. So to show you something, let me go to View and let's just hide this large display so that it looks like over here on the left, you see here, I'm going to go ahead and just move this into the middle right now, just so that you can see it a little better. Notice that the paste is on the bottom of the display screen and it's right above the trace key. Notice escape is right above the graph key. When you get these commands on the display screen that are at the bottom, then you're going to use the top row of keys. If you want to paste this to the home screen, then you are going to, now don't click on paste, click on the button below paste, which is trace, and that takes it back. So let me go ahead and change view back to the large display because I think it's a little easier for you to see it. Let's see now. Whoops, I do want the large screen view. I don't want, let's see, I want to hide that. And I'm going to make this a little bigger now. Let's get this back onto the, okay, there we go. And I'll press enter. Okay. So what this shows me is that my first payment, $245 goes to principal. Oh my God, that's not very much. That's not very much. I'm paying $2,000. Let me go back to apps. Let's confirm this. Finance. Now I'm going to go and choose some of the interest. I'm just going to select it right now. I'm going to type again. I could have gone back to the catalog, but it's going to be the same thing as it was for some of the principal. And I see that the interest added up from the first payment to the first payment, a little redundant there, but $1,750 goes to. Oh my God, it's almost all interest. But that's the nature of mortgages. This is why the banks love to loan you money. Let's do one more thing here on the home screen. I'm going to go back to apps, finance, and I'm going to go down and get to balance to see how much I will have left after the first payment. Let's see. So after making one payment, I still owe $299,000. Notice it was $300,000, and only it's only been diminished by $245. Now, we could do some exploring here if this is getting you worried. Well, gosh, I'm going to go up and I'm going to grab the principal here and I'm going to see, so what about, say, after 10 years? What about the 120th payment? Gosh, will that at least be, how about the 120th payment? That's after 10 years. Look at that. I'm still only, in 10 years, my principal has gone from 245. Okay, it's doubled, but it's still less than 500 of my $2,000, okay, is going towards principal. Not very much. And just one more way to do this, and the way this was sort of designed, if I want to see over the course of 10 years, I'm going to delete this and we'll see how this is set up to work, that if I want to know how much the sum of the principal for the first payment through the 120th payment, so that's 300, that's the first 10 years, I see that I've paid off $42,000. Okay. Not as much as I had hoped. If I was to go to interest, and okay, so where I've paid off $42,000 in the first 10 years, I've also paid the bank $196,000. Yikes. But again, that's the nature of what it means to take out a mortgage. So here we're doing everything here on the home screen. It's a powerful tool. It really is, but let's take it a step further. This is about tables. So, so let's see if we can look at this in table form, not just the numerical side. So I'm going to go to y equals. And I want to put those functions in the y equals menu. Now I could go back to apps and finance and go grab those off of the finance menu. But since I just did it on the home screen, you remember this here. I'm going to go back to the home screen. When I did the first time I went to the apps and the finance menu, but subsequently I then just used the second entry command to go, or I scrolled up to go up and get the previous ones. Well, I can also use second entry to get the previous one. And what's interesting about second entry is it doesn't matter where the cursor is. So the cursor now is on Y1. I'm going to go second entry. And look at that. It grabs what's on the home screen. I'm going to go second entry again, and I'm scrolling up through the history of the home screen. And to do this as a graph, I'm going to change the first payment and the second payment to X comma X. And let's see what that does. So let's put Y1. Let's have sum of the principal for, again, the first payment, second payment. Let's do this for interest as well. Second enter. And let's change that to X comma X. And let's go to one more, balance. So second interest. Let's see, I have to scroll back. I have to scroll through. We're almost there. We go. Let's change balance to X. But remember, balance is negative. And if I want to be able to see what's going on, I'm going to take the negative of the balance so that I actually get a positive number when I'm looking at my balance table. So I want to make sure that my table is right there at the beginning. So I'm going to table start is 0. My delta table is 1. And I'm going to go to the table. And here is my amortization table. Right here, just on a TI-84. Notice the value of the loan. I borrowed $300,000. And before I make any payments, X is the payment number. So before I make any payments, it's the sum of the principal and sum of the interest, Y1 and Y2, are kind of, those are errors. That's not going to give me anything. So 300,000. And then you can see we had a look at this on the home screen a moment ago. The first payment, 245 to principal. If you forget what's in Y1 and Y2, you can highlight Y1 and it'll tell you at the bottom that Y1 is the principal, Y2 is the interest, and then Y3 is the negative balance, which is a positive number. And look at this. We can see right here how much goes to principal, how much goes to interest, and then the balance of the loan. And you'll notice that it goes up incrementally, little by little. The principal goes up a couple bucks a month. And it is going up, but it's going up very slowly. And gosh, I wonder how long it's going to take before the principal is more than the interest. And it looks like this is going to take a long time if I just scroll through the table. So that's why I like to see graphs. So I'm going to go, obviously, if I was to just look at the standard window, I'm not going to see a thing. So we need an appropriate viewing window. And I really do believe that, and I'm not a fan of Zoom Stat and Zoom Integer. I'm not a fan of those. I think that you learn a lot by having the students figure out, okay, what should these be? What's on the, what's the scale on the x-axis? What's the scale on the y-axis? And so since X is the payments, how about if we go from 0 to 360? And since Y is the value of the amount of the payment, let's go from 0. Let's see, $2,000 is the amount in my monthly payment. Let's make that be 2,000. Since scale is the tick marks on the axis, maybe we'll let the X scale be units of 10. and Y scale be units of 100, just so that it's a little bit easier to read. Now, take a look at this delta X in the trace step. They're not very pretty. They're kind of ugly, long, repeating decimals. Let's talk about that, but let's go to graph first. And here it is. It happens very quickly on the with the emulator. It will go much slower on a handheld. But notice I'm not getting very much information. I'm not getting very much information. And why not? When I press trace, I start in the middle of the screen at the 180th payment. And when I hit the right arrow key, it's moving the delta trace step is 2.73, but this function, the domain of this function is only whole numbers. So 182.73 is not a payment number. And this has to do with the dimensions of the screen. So what I have to do here is go back to Window, and let's make something. Since delta X is 1.36, what would I just made delta X 1? Press enter. Notice then trace step is 2 because it's every other column. And now X max has been changed to 264. And that's because there's 264 columns of pixels. So as we move from left to right, there's 264 steps. And that's what it takes to get a delta X of 1 and a trace step of 2. But that only goes to 264. I want it to go past 300. I need to go to at least 360. So I'm going to take this 264 and double it. Notice I can just type the operation right there. And so now it's 528. My delta X is 2. My trace step is 4. Let's go back. And now because the trace step is in increments of whole numbers, then notice it's slowing down, and on your handheld, it's going to go really slow. And we can see what's going on. Oh, that's right. Here is where it's not, since balance is in the hundreds of thousands, I'm going to go to Y equals, it's still going here, that little worm. I'm going to go to Y equals, and I'm going to turn off balance. I'm just going to press enter, turn it off, and let's go back. Of course, it's going a lot faster now. And we can see where it crosses. So the principal is in blue and the interest is in red. If we press trace, and we're still waiting for it to get to the end of the screen. Up, there we go. I'm going to press trace. And it starts at the center column, 264. My goal is to see when is it the same? And it's going to be around 240 payments. But because we're only looking at every fourth payment, that's the best resolution I can do. I don't see exactly. So I'm going to finish this up. I want to make sure John has plenty of time. So let me finish this up, wrap this up here. If I want to see every year instead of every fourth year, let me go back to the table. But let's start the table at 236, since that's pretty close. And now we'll look at this numerically. Whoops, second table. And there's the table starting at 200 at the 236th payment. And now I can visually see, if I scroll down, that it's around the, let's see, at the 242nd payment. That's more than halfway through. Finally, I'll be paying as much in principal as in interest. So lots more that we can explore here. But of course, I want to give John some time. Again, if you've got questions, please don't hesitate to write, email, or email me, and we can go through this together. But now I am going to pass the ball to John and give John a chance to show, because he's got awesome stuff too. So John, to you.
That is so great. I love the symmetry of that beautiful graph. I also was really appreciating the comments in the chat. So as we go through our activities, as you've been doing, keep asking questions in the chat, but you can always email us, as we just said, or at the end. So one of the things that I'd like to share with you is a different way to do Guess My Rule that might be used in many different ways because of the course that you're in. You could use this in Algebra 1 or in pre-calc or even higher. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to show you a y equal. And what I would ask students to do is type that fractional expression in their calculator, but I'm going to use the stacked fraction feature. So if I use the division key instead, this would not give me the same display as if I use the stacked fraction. And I'm going to share with you the easy way to get the stacked fraction on all calculators, TI-84 pluses and CEs, is press the alpha button and then the y equal, and there it is in the shortcut. It's more than just there. This is one place, and then I'd hit the enter button or the 1, and I can get that stacked fraction. And I use my middle X key. It is also in the math menu too. What's important is to follow when you do these um, stacked fractions, to follow the little arrow here, the GPS. And if you have an 84 plus CE, and this is the newer model with the Python actually has that indicated right here on it. But if it doesn't have it, it still works. So pressing alpha X is sort of like a little Easter egg, and you can get the stacked fraction in there. And I've been using that now a lot. It's just only for the color calculator. And I'm going to use the times key and then finish this off. So this is one way to see the get the stack fraction in. And I'm going to do something interesting. I'd like to point out I'm in the mode auto. If I press the mode button and I have the default setting of auto, it will give me an automatic display based on what I've typed. So when I go into my table, these are going to show the same thing because they're identical. But second window, if I use the default setting of auto, and then I go by ones, you'll see these are stacked fractions. Now, if you ever want a stacked fraction to not look like a stacked fraction, you don't have to retype it. So like if I'm in limits where I really care about the decimal value, I can just add a 0 and put a decimal point on it. And then I will have a decimal display because it's in auto. And you can do that anywhere. I mean, I could have just put the decimal point right here, and it would still be now a decimal. So it's a little handy trick to change fractions into decimals on the display. And I use that a lot. We're only going to use the fractional one. And having this in front of students, what I'm going to ask them to do is share with them the table and ask them to look at a pattern, and can they see a pattern of what comes next. And it really is not easy to see this as a pattern. We could scroll a little more, but the calculator has seemed to be friendly enough to reduce some fractions for us that's taken away the pattern. So I would like to just look at the odd values of x. And I'll ask my students, okay, help me with this. What would I need to do to make sure that only the odds show? And on a good day, I'd see that they would walk in steps of 2. And then the odd values of x seem to give me a little more pattern. So delta table, good job, Joshua. And so that delta table is my step and my increment, my table increment. So already, even in middle school, we're talking about what delta means, and increment and step are in our vocabulary. Beautifully said. And so we're going to get these patterns here, and this is a nice opportunity now for a notice wonder prompt. So what do you notice and what do you wonder? And can you guess the next one? If I were to just press the down arrow, I'd like my students to tell me, what do you think the numerator is? And you can type it in the chat. What do you think the numerator is of the next row? And most of the time, I'll get, a good one. And yep. And then the harder part might be, what is the denominator? So some students who know divisibility rules might see that 6 and 3, 20 and 5, so 42 and 7, these are multiples of x. And so when I look kind of at breaking this into their factors, my students might be inclined to take and put onto pencil and paper, something where they would have let's see, a way they could write this as 2 times 3. And then you see that what I'm hoping for is them to start building a pattern. And then since I have 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, you and I probably would not be surprised at 7, 8, 9. If I then ask them, hey, what do you think number 90, x equal 99 is? You could type that in the chat. And they notice that the 9 here and the 9 there work together, the 7 here, and I'm going to ask them to sniff out a pattern. And many times what will happen is they'll get x here for the value that matches the input, and then they lower each one by 1, right? So good. Oh, and that's another way to go. And what I notice is all I'm asking now is pattern sniffing. And what is really cool is if I stick that in, the calculator will tell me if I'm on the right track or not, because I can stick in x and then -2, and I can test my answer or my conjecture. And this is one way that I like to show my students, look, you are doing a lot of simplifying throughout your mathematical life. For heaven's sakes, this calculator can assist you from errors by giving you some confirmation. And then they have an endorphin rush that they matched. So we've just simplified this in a way by pattern sniffing. And I want to thank Tammy Lee Jones for the little image here for the pattern sniffing. And then I might say, okay, we just showed it for these odd values. Did we show this is true for any x? And can we use some algebraic reasoning? And you and I know, I don't know if yours shout for joy when you ask them to do this. I mean, I gave this out for Halloween candy instead, last couple of weeks ago and days ago, and I got my windows soaked. So it's not really a favorite, but actually the motivation for doing this might actually be now, well, let's see. Oh, goodness. X minus 1 minus 1. And look at that. X minus 2 over x. And we've got the same kind of thing happening by being able to do the algebra. So I've sort of done a guess my rule, but I've had a fun way to get them also to have an internal motivation for this, to be able to simplify an algebraic expression. And you and I know that we've shown it just now for any x, and we could have shown it for done it separately for even values. But I've already done it, right? By algebra, I've covered everything. But I'd like to use this opportunity to show you there's so many fertile ways you can kind of take this guess my rule activity and have some fun with it. And even though the rule was shown, we guessed a different rule and showed that they were the same. What I'd like to do is I'd like to go into my second window, and I'm going to now change the independent to ask. And this is the Aladdin feature where he rubs a lamp and then out the genie pops, and whatever he asks for, the genie gives him, right? This is that. Uh, so you get to type in the independent. The ask for the dependent is not like that, however. That ask on the dependent is really just more the kind of Wheel of Fortune Vanna White feature where I will unveil this underneath the tiles when you ask for it. So there's two different names, two different behaviors, even though the name is the same. And so what I'd like to now do is go into my second table. And whatever was in there has now been wiped away. So it's got a nice clean palette there. And what we're really going to do is build a dynamic table. Oh my goodness. I'm enjoying the different ways you can do this expression in the chat. And isn't it fun? I mean, we've got these ways to build in our patterns. And this, I mean, our Calc 2 students right now that I'm teaching are doing this very same thing of what is the rule and when they look at patterns. Now I am in ask, so I can put anything in the first column. I decided to just put the evens. But look what I can do now is I can go and choose any tile I wish. And if I hit enter, it will unveil it. And so this one was a cute one. I doubt if my students would remember that I did that from the earlier. Oh, no, I didn't have 8 in there. I had only the odds. And I could put this one in now. So I roll over to, oh, let's see. If I were to, I've got some kind of suggestion here. 1, 6. And I'm now going to put in this one. I'm going to ask now, all right, do you see what would likely be the numerator of this function or this output or expression? And if you were a betting person, yep, 2 would be good. What would be the numerator of the first row? And feel free to throw it in the chat if you were a betting person. And just walking backwards, we wouldn't, here we go, not be too surprised. It's the denominators that are really, excuse me, really the issue. So I'm going to have some fun with this, and I'm going to put in the product of the denominators in y2. And now everything's wiped again. And what I'd like to have my students think about is, now, please know you can do this activity in any way you wish. And I'm just kind of looking at different versions of the activity that I can now go. This is a dynamic table that I can turn these tiles over and see, can you tell me, what might be, if I give you just a few of these, can you now see the pattern? And what it has done is it gets you an opportunity for you to try to show, see, we've lowered the cognitive demand on all of what's showing. So I'm controlling what I display so I can get a sense of a pattern. And now, even without looking at the Y1, I might think if this is a 12:6 ratio, this denominator might be a 56 to a, and there it is, half of that, a 28. So, and I can kind of make the connections between y2 and the denominator. And then I can also try to build the connection between the first column and the third column. So I have 56 and I have an 8. I have 12 and a 4. What would I expect here? my students may forget what I did with my y1, but they may forget that it was the product of the denominators, and I won't remind them. But I think that even without letting them know, they might see that this row is 9 times 10, 8 times 7, 4 times 3. In fact, these are the rectangular numbers. And if I went this way now, I would bet, if I were a betting person, I would stick a double the 15, and I'd ask students, why did you get this number here? Well, they could say, I doubled the 15, or they could have said, I did 6 times 5. So what I want to share with you that's so cool about an activity that gets into this approach is that you have so many opportunities and on-ramps for students of different levels, so that not just the student at the top level is only the one who's getting the answer. And so we might guess this has a 4 in the numerator and a 45 in the denominator. And this is a cute one because we can't see the denominator. So if I ask them, well, what would you think that column would be? The only way they could do it is looking at the pattern of the first column and then the last column. So if this is 4 times 3, then this has to be 2 times 1. And we can get a lot of the a pattern building through a dynamic table. What I share with you here can be done in so many different applications. You might think of exponential versus linear in 2 columns to see how they grow and their deltas change. So that's a really cool kind of way to see things. And I'd like to just go back to looking now at the pattern here, that if I were to have these numbers here and say, now I've got the connection between now 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 5, 3, 4, 7, how can I get this rule? And I might look at how the numerator is actually half of the previous row in the X column, and it can be kind of neat then to get a sense of these rectangular numbers and then build in whatever is the formula. So they might say, here's the way to do this. I'll look at the X, right? And I'll take half of the denominator, the denominator, I'll take half of what's in this column, the third column, and I'll take a half of what is in the row before this, which would be this number minus 2. So if I ask my students in words, what did they do? Half the product, right, of the rectangular number, and then the half of the difference. And it turns out to be the exact same value as they did before. It wasn't going to be easy with the evens to see that as well as the odds, but there is a cute kind of way. Yeah, so we've got our quadratic denominator. We have lots of ways that you can extend this activity. And just to kind of, for fun, share with you this, you could just put in reciprocals in here. Now this is back to the original function, and you pick any function you want to. You could put in reciprocals and then say, now what do you notice about this pattern? And it can be kind of fun to notice that the denominator is the previous reciprocal denominator, so that could be cute. And then you might notice 6 is a factor of 66. And so I would like to build the pattern here, and it might be neat to see that purple strip is going to be a little trick for students that they may be able to get this through exploration. Now, I would never do it this fast in my classroom. We'd build this together, but I'd say, well, if you can tell me a couple of these pieces to the 1 over b, what would be this? And some of my students might even decide to say, oh, I'll graph the denominator of the x value versus the number in the numerator that's purple, and that's a linear. They might see an arithmetic sequence if I'm in pre-calculus. So there's lots of ways they can get that. But you know what we did is we just did function composition. Who's going to do, your textbook may ask you that, right? Well, we asked it through pattern sniffing. And then we can do all of the algebra if we want to show that our pattern did work. We can also, this is a little tricky to do in the calculator with another function, but it's great to see that in now, guess my rule turns into a sneaky, maybe it's a Tom Sawyer trick where you're going to have the opportunity to change uh, the the direction of the question. Now it's not coming from you, it's coming from them. They'll say, what can I show that it's always true? So those were using the table, and in the handout it goes on with even more examples. Some of them are harder, some of them are easier. You just season them to taste, right? You know the level of your students and if they want more fun to be challenged or not. Oh yes, I did do Fibonacci, Joshua, with this, and I then had them drawing Fibonacci spirals on the wall using vertical spaces. So email me. I will be happy to give you the cool stuff that I tried with that. And I did that in Calc 2 to try to then scroll that Fibonacci ratio to see, ooh, golden ratio showing up, you know. So it was just beautiful. So I'm going to return now, Ruth, to you for the great news of the drawing outcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I forgot to change slides and things because I was so wrapped up in that lesson. So thank you. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I saw a question pop up. Are the videos available? Yes. You can view on demand the previous 3 presentations, and those links are right on the webinar sign-up sheet. John will probably also put them in the chat before I even get to finish saying that. Also in the chat, John had placed the link for the documents for tonight, but also you'll be getting a link in email that will link you to tonight's documents. All right. Keep those questions and comments coming in. I almost forgot to do this part too. I used my random number generator on my TI-84 Plus to get a winner from tonight's viewers. And congratulations, Hester Sutton from Delaware. You are the winner of the calculator. Woohoo! Congratulations, Hester. All right, let's see. John, did you place a link in there for
Before you finish your sentence.
documents? Okay. All right. I will put a link in there for your certificate of attendance for tonight. Okay, there's a link for your certificate of attendance that will also be included in an email for you. And remember, when you're signing off of this, depending on the platform you're using, you might be able to save the chat that has lots of great comments and ideas and some links. All right, let's see what's next. We've sent a link to documents. You've sent a link to the previous 3 webinars. I think that is it for me. Okay, and Sherry says, can you put the link in the chat? And I'm wondering which link that was.
I put it again. There's a lot of scrolling that went past, so here it is again to the certificate. Okay. We had a 50-50 shot.
All right, I put that in again.
There's a
This time I actually
certificate
put the word
twice.
certificate with it, so it wasn't some mystery. All right. Thank you both so much. Thank you, people who were sharing ideas. John, one more request. Could you resend the document link, please?
Sure.
Also, it's recorded. You can go back and view again later. You will be receiving an email with the link to the documents on the TI site and the link to the recording and a link to attendance certificate. So thank you all so much for being here. We're going to keep the chat open for a few more minutes if you have questions or comments. And I believe that's it for me.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much. This has been fun. I hope this has been beneficial for you.
And Scylla, you can update your calculator. And I know there's lots of ways to go with that. It's not too old to update if it's an 84. So that's good news. The 84 is updatable. And if you email either Stuart or me, I'd be happy to give you more directions on how to update it. And even we can do it over a Zoom if you want to. So we're happy to help you out. There's certainly stuff out there on Google if you go into the TI website, but that might be easiest. And more than happy to help you.